VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Thank you, Mr. Morris, and good to have you with us on Crosstalk today, coming your way from VCY America Central here in Studio E. And we've got a lot of things to talk about today. We hope to have a guest as well, but we're standing by here making sure that the guest would be available. And I believe we have the guest available, and we're glad to share some things with you that I think you need to be aware of. Now, many of us have been hearing all about the issue of the birth certificate or the Social Security card or all of the things that are under question these days regarding the qualifications of our president or Mr. Obama being qualified to run for president. There have been those, of course, that have been accused of being birthers, but the question continues, and it has come from very, very reliable sources that have integrity. And so today it's our privilege to have with us Dr. Orly Taitz, a well-known lawyer in the country who has brought to light a number of legal cases pertaining to the eligibility of our president, President Barack Obama. Dr. Taitz is president of Defend Our Freedoms Foundation. She was born and raised in the communist Soviet Union and knows firsthand the bleakness of the totalitarian regime and being deprived of constitutional rights. And Dr. Taitz, we'd like to welcome you today to Crosstalk. Good to have you with us.
Good to be on your show. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we just finished a hearing in Indianapolis, Indiana. And the case continues. One good thing about it, as you know, all the other cases that were brought by other attorneys and other parties were dismissed. However, in my case, I have about 6 cases that are proceeding, and this case is proceeding to trial. It was not dismissed. The defense, the Deputy Attorney General of Indiana, actually wanted the judge to go back on her order and revoke prior grant of pro hac vice, meaning a special order allowing me as an out-of-state attorney to represent Indiana plaintiffs. And the judge denied it. She also stated on the record that she believes that this indeed is a strong case, that there is valid concern, and she believes in the argument that I brought, but she did not see evidence, she did not see sufficient evidence to grant preliminary injunction that we asked for. So we will continue. We will be asking for an expedited trial in this case. And we will bring our witnesses to court for actual trial. This was just a preliminary injunction hearing, but we will bring witnesses to testify at trial so that the evidence, all the evidence is there. I have to state that I attempted to subpoena Sheriff Joseph Arpaio, and I'm really disheartened by the fact that he did not show up. We tried to subpoena him in Georgia, Mississippi, Indiana, and I'm really concerned about the fact that Sheriff Arpaio went around the country, raised $7 million on this issue, did press conferences, but when he is asked to appear in court, either he or Mr. Zulu, and I was willing to even pay for them to fly here, they are not appearing in court, and that's something that hopefully your listeners will address with Mr. Arpaio, because if he would have been here today, there is a very high likelihood the Judge Reed would have granted our motion for preliminary injunction.
Well, Dr. Taitz, you've just come out, and I'm sure you've been through the ringer anytime you're in a courtroom with all of this going on. But when there are a number of cases that have been going on. I cannot understand at a time when the vetting of a presidential candidate, checking if they are qualified, how all of this can be just brushed aside like a fly on the table and ignored completely when there's been an awful lot of evidence brought forth. What?
You should ask the judges. I mean, people are allowed to I guess, write to a judge and ask those questions. I'm the person who brings all this evidence. As you know, I had a case in Georgia, and there, I spent a lot of money. I spent $14,000. I brought witnesses. I brought a senior deportation officer from the Department of Homeland Security testifying that Barack Obama's Social Security number is invalid, that it's a Connecticut number which was issued to another individual. We brought E-Verify showing that it's this number that he's using, that he posted on his tax returns, that he put online, that it's not a valid number. We had all the evidence, and at the end, the judge there ruled that it's not persuasive enough, and to me, it's just hard to believe how could that be not persuasive enough when you have a senior deportation officer providing this evidence.
Could it be? Could it be, Dr. Taitz, that there are judges who are so intimidated dealing with a case that is so volatile, dealing with the highest executive in our country, and then to find? I think maybe there are those that say they're afraid of the truth. Because if this comes to light and it is verified, there's going to be egg all over the face of who knows how many.
Yeah. I was wondering if we can do a break, because I have here an associate press reporter from Indiana who's been patiently waiting. So if we can do a commercial break so that I can give him a short interview, and because he is standing here and waiting, and then I will be able to continue with the show.
May I ask this, because we are live on 92 radio stations at this moment.
Okay, sure.
And if we can take the break at about 14 minutes, that's about 5 minutes more. And then we have a 60-second break.
Okay.
So we'll stick with it there. And now, Mr. Obama has been the president for nearly 4 years. Why is it that you continue to fight the battle?
Well, let's not forget that Richard Nixon has been not only elected but also was reelected. After he was in office for 5.5 years, he was forced to resign. So wheels of justice grind very slowly. That's one reason. The other reason, the judges ruled that you cannot bring this challenge when Obama is a president, that you need to bring those challenges during the election time. So that's what we're doing now. After 4 years, we renewed all of those legal actions because now is the right time to do it during the election.
Well, folks, and the thing that has me bewildered, Dr. Taitz, is that if someone is an imposter, I mean, someone who is portraying something that they are not, and if they were caught flying an airplane and they weren't a pilot, or somebody in a bank that was functioning in a way that they were not qualified, you wouldn't wait for 6 months or a year to deal with it. You deal with it immediately. Why is it that elections suddenly bring immunity?
I also believe that, I lived in the Soviet Union, which was a dictatorship, and we're seeing such enormous corruption in the government that we are getting very close to a dictatorship. As a matter of fact, in this case in Indiana, I joined as additional defendants, Deputy Attorney General of the state and Assistant Attorney General of the state. And my argument is they are the law enforcement officers of the state. Mm-hmm. The Secretary of State is the chief election officers. And in any other case, they really prosecute parties. As a matter of fact, in the state of Indiana, they removed from office the Secretary of State. They actually convicted him and sent him to prison for something minor because he didn't update his voter registration card. And we're seeing all this evidence with Mr. Obama, and they're doing absolutely nothing. To me, this is just an unprecedented level of corruption in the government, among governmental officials.
Now, we're talking about something we've talked talked first of all about his Social Security, and then we talk about birth certificate. You've also alleged that Mr. Obama is using a forged Selective Service certificate as well.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I have provided the judge with a, 1 second, I'm doing a radio show on 92 stations. They are providing, Sheriff Arpaio did a press conference, and I also provided the judge with a videotape of that specific press conference where he has shown on a large screen the Selective Service certificate that Mr. Obama is using, and it's so easy to see that's a forgery. Every other certificate has a postal stamp with 4 digits, 1980. Obama's is the only one that has just 2 digits, 80. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Zullo, chief investigator for Sheriff Arpaio, has testified and shown how they found that indeed a 2008 postal stamp was used, but they cut it in half and inverted it, and that's how they came up with 80. So it's a child can see this as forgery. If every other certificate has a 4-digit postal stamp and this has only 2 digits, then it's clear evidence of forgery. I really need to do a
yes, Dr. Taitz.
Call me like in 4 minutes, okay?
Dr. Taitz, we'll call you back. We'll call you back in a moment, but we'll clear you for right now. Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be rejoining Dr. Taitz in a moment. Just coming out of the courtroom, this is a very, very volatile time for her. And so, Matthew, if you'd call her back in about 4 minutes, and we'll get her back on the air. But these are issues, folks, that people are concerned with. And my big question, if when it comes election time, I thought that there had to be the vetting of all of the candidates to verify that they are qualified. And, WorldNet Daily is reporting today that a former advisor to Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher by the name of Christopher Monckton has calculated the odds of all of the anomalies regarding Barack Obama, his birth certificate occurring naturally, all of these things happening, the odds of this happening just by natural causes is 1 in 62.5 quintillion, meaning that there has to be some human intervention here. This stuff just doesn't happen by accident. And it raises all sorts of questions, and we're not here as judge and jury, folks, but we do have the privilege of asking questions, and there are those who are still raising the question about whether or not a candidate is qualified to run as president. Now, again, we'll be welcoming our Dr. Taitz back as soon as she finishes. Just coming out of the courtroom, she's been deluged with other media. They're asking questions, and we appreciate her willingness to join us on the network. But there are things. One of the things, of course, that's happened here, Newsmax reporting that the Obama administration has blasted. Literally, they're being blasted by the left and the right for snubbing world leaders. And while the world leaders are here in this country, Mr. Obama is on the TV station, the TV program known as The View. And the world leaders are standing waiting to talk. Interesting. We'll be back in just a moment.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what happened to fish during the Great Flood?
Chris, fish died by the trillions in the flood, but at least some of them remained alive and repopulated the oceans afterwards. Recently, an interesting fossil was found which illustrated the trauma to fish during the flood. Some stingrays employ live birth as opposed to laying eggs. This particular mother stingray was in the process of being overwhelmed by sediments and conditions during the flood, but surrounding her body just a few centimeters away were 3 small newborn pups. Evidently, they had just barely been released from the mother when all were overwhelmed and buried. Their lives were short, but we can still learn from them today. And what we learn confirms that back to Genesis truth.
If you would like to learn more about science from a Christian perspective, please call us toll-free at 1-800-7-GENESIS or visit our website at www.icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where we're talking about the preparation for election. And, of course, the vetting of candidates, whoever they might be. And, of course, there's all the election rhetoric that goes back and forth and all of the commitments and accusations, this being probably one of the messiest campaigns ever in the history of our country. But the question raised by Newsmax here, and it says President Obama has not planned a single meeting with a foreign leader who is visiting New York this week for the UN General Assembly. He has already received criticism for failing to make time in his election campaign schedule to meet with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But now it's clear that he will not meet any of the other world leaders who are descending on the Big Apple for the annual event. Now Mr. Obama is being slammed from both the left and the right for finding time to meet with the leaders, the ladies, I should say, of television's The View, but not with Britain's David Cameron, Egypt's Mohamed Morsi, France's the whole list of these, 120 leaders in town, and he doesn't have time to meet with them. Reuters described it as a trip with Whoopi and not Bibi, referring to the views of Whoopi Goldberg and Israel's Netanyahu. The news service pointed out that the foreign policy, especially a possible Israeli strike on Iran in the next few weeks, poses a greater risk to the Obama administration and its prospects for a second term than any other issue. Campaigning seems to be the only reason for the president's decision to forego one-on-one meetings with national leaders. Last year he scheduled a dozen. There really isn't a full explanation that's been forthcoming other than the president has a busy schedule with ABC News and Jake Tapper and in fact Jake Tapper said on Fox News and on the record. Republican rival Mitt Romney was quick to attack the president for failing to meet with the world leaders, especially those from Israel and Arab nations. We want a president who will shape events in the Middle East, he said. And Mr. Romney hit out at Obama's comment on Sunday night's 60 Minutes that recent events in the Middle East have been little more than bumps in the road. Little more than bumps in the road. The world looks on at the events going on, Romney said at the campaign event Monday in Pueblo, Colorado. They don't see these events as bumps in the road. These are lives. This is humanity, and this is freedom. Mr. Obama addressed the General Assembly on Tuesday morning, but that was likely to be the full extent of his participation as he left bilateral meetings to the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. Time magazine said, "Blink and you may miss President Obama's appearance at the annual UN General Assembly this week. The president plans to make the briefest visit by a U.S. president in recent memory." And so campaigning seems to be the number one important thing, but the questions, again, legitimately raised by people like the attorney that we were just talking to, Dr. Orly Taitz, and hopefully we'll be able to have her back on shortly. Just coming out of the courtroom was a very difficult time, but we're so glad that she joined us. Now, not too many hours ago, in fact, probably an hour or so ago, the Iranian president, Ahmadinejad, said Tuesday that a new world order needs to emerge away from years of what he called American bullying and domination. Now, this man spoke to the Associated Press in a wide-ranging interview on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, his last as president of Iran. He was to address the assembly Wednesday morning. And the Iranian leader also discussed solutions for the Syrian civil war, dismissed the question of Iran's nuclear ambition, and claimed that despite Western sanctions, his country is better off than it was when he took office in 2005. This is what he said: "God willing, a new order will come together, and we'll do away with everything that distances us." He said that speaking through a translator, he says, "I do believe The system of empires has reached the end of the road. The world can no longer see an emperor commanding it. Now, this, of course, is the man who is claiming that the great Satan, the United States, and Israel should be annihilated. But this visit to the UN, of course, making historic waves, and Ahmadinejad said that Israel will be eliminated. That's right. He hasn't changed it at all. He said on Monday, disregarded a UN warning to avoid incendiary rhetoric, and declared ahead of the annual General Assembly session that Israel has no roots in the Middle East and would be eliminated. Okay, we're going to go back to our guest who is now available. And our guest is Dr. Orly Taitz, who is with us, just coming out of the courtroom there in Indiana. And Dr. Taitz, good to have you back with us.
Yes, I was just giving an interview to Associated Press. I had to take a short break, and I am in the elevator.
Your phone is breaking up a bit.
I'm in the elevator. I will be getting out of the elevator in a moment. Yeah,
okay.
Now we're getting out. So can you hear me better?
Yeah, we can hear you better now, yes. The elevators are not too friendly to cell phones.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we talked about the Ford Selective Service Certificate.
Yes.
And, of course, we were just quoting that the WorldNet Daily, or WND, is reporting that the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's an advisor to her by the name of Christopher Monken, that he has calculated the odds of all of these anomalies happening from natural things are about 1 in 62.5 quintillion. That's a number we can't even envision what it is. Now, it seems like many in the world are starting to take notice.
Absolutely. I have given interviews all over the world. As a matter of fact, as you know, I was born in the Soviet Union, so a crew from several Russian networks have traveled to California. They interviewed me. They've done several documentaries, and their reporters and talk show hosts are just beside themselves. They're shocked at the level of corruption in the federal and state government in the United States of America, that such an obvious fraud and forgery can be left unprosecuted. And, it's extremely important for the citizens to rise. For example, as I stated, I was just so disheartened. We could have won this case today. We could have had a preliminary injunction today because Judge Reed stated on the record, and I will order the transcript, but she did state on the record that that she believes in my case. She says that she believes that I do have a strong case, that she believes in the arguments that I brought. She believes it's a valid argument. However, she needs evidence, and she believes that, it's not strong yet on evidence. I attempted to subpoena Sheriff Arpaio or his associate investigator, Mike Zula. If they would have been here today, at least one of them, we would have had an injunction against Barack Obama. The same thing happened in Georgia, and it's really disheartening that they are doing nothing. So I'm
wondering, is the sheriff being threatened?
No, listen, you know what? I'm getting threats every day and night. As a matter of fact, when I have court hearings, every night I get phone calls in the middle of the night telling me, you effing bitch, you should be hanging. And some of those I just recorded. It's on my phone as evidence. But the problem is, I don't believe she was threatened. I don't know why he is waiting.
I was thinking of Sheriff Arpaio. If he had been threatened.
And, look, if I can withstand all of this, don't you think that the sheriff who has protection cannot withstand this? If I can withstand all of those threats, so can he. And if he were to cooperate with me, we would have been done a long time ago. So you have 92 stations, and it's thousands of people. I'm asking everybody to call and write to Sheriff Arpaia and just tell him in no other words he has to appear in court, that Attorney Taitz has subpoenaed him 3 times in 3 different states, Mississippi, Indiana, and Georgia, and he refused to appear. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact...
do you have his number? Do you have his telephone number?
I don't. I have. I don't have the cell phone number, but you contact. I have his. I have the email address for Mike Zullo, and I will give it to you later.
Yeah, we would need to. We would like to get it on the air even today as we're speaking. If there's some way we can at least get the sheriff's office there, wherever his headquarters.
Yes, but you just call Sheriff's Department in Maricopa County, Arizona, and just let him know that we need him to cooperate. Mm-hmm. And just if people, there are thousands of people, mm-hmm. there are 90 stations, and there are several thousand people who are listening. Probably you have audience of several million people. If several million people write to Sheriff Arpaia and his investigator Mike Zullo and other people who have evidence, and just let them know, look, we will not be giving you any more donations until you take on this issue. I also urge everybody, please, you need to write to all of the Republican candidates for Congress, for Senate, for President, everybody, telling them, you have to show them that you are serious. Tell them we will not give you a cent in donations until you stand up and speak up on this issue. We have the most serious crime committed in this country. You have a voice. There are several million people who are listening to this network, 92 stations. Please demand that they act and demand and let them know that they have to act. For example, Donald Trump, he talked about this quite a lot. Mm-hmm. But, I wrote to him. I never heard back. He never donated 1 cent. Just to give you an idea, it's extremely hard for me to put up evidence because people, when I subpoena them, I have to pay for their transportation.
Sure.
And when we had a case in Georgia, I paid $14,000 out of my pocket to bring all those witnesses to testify, and I cannot do it in every state. I can't.
Well, Dr. Orly Taitz, let me. We're going to come up on a break. I don't want to lose you, so stay with us. But we are coming up with the phone number. Our producer is getting it right now, and the phone number that we will be able to give out, where people can call the office of Sheriff Arpaio. And he is the one who should or could. He has already done the research. He has come up with information that he vows is a case and evidence and proving evidence. So I'm going to give you the phone numbers, folks, and you can start calling as our guest has requested. And that phone number is area code 602-876-1801. And you can call and ask why he didn't show up when he was subpoenaed to show up. That number again is 602-876-1801. And tell them that it's being heard all across the country today, and tell him that they're still waiting for an answer. If he has the evidence, why doesn't he show up? We're going to be right back in just a moment with Dr. Orly Taitz, our guest, an attorney who is dealing with this issue of the qualifications of a presidential candidate. We'll be right back.
It only takes a quick look around to see that the world is a mess. There is something very sinister happening behind the scenes in the areas of money, politics, and religion in our country today. What's worse, we are not being fully informed by Wall Street or government officials, and most of the media is only repeating what the politicians and bankers tell them. In the book, A Nation in Crisis, authors Larry Bates and Chuck Bates, news executives with IRN USA News, unravel the confusion and unmask the mystery surrounding the institutions controlling our money, our government, and our religions. They also give their thoughts on how one should respond to the demise of the U.S. dollar, declining morality, the muzzling of faith, and the chaos of the culture. The hard-covered book, A Nation in Crisis, is available for a donation of $20 to VCY America, which can be made by calling 1-800-729-9829. Ask for the book, A Nation in Crisis. Again, the number toll-free, 1-800-729-9829.
And we're back with you on Crosstalk today. Dr. Orly Taitz, who is a well-known lawyer in the country, who brought to light a number of legal cases pertaining to the eligibility of President Barack Obama as a candidate for president. Now, Dr. Taitz is from the communist country. She knows what liberty is, knows firsthand the bleakness of a totalitarian regime. And how it's like to be deprived of constitutional rights. And at this moment, I believe, Dr. Taitz, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm back. And by the way, I have here my plaintiffs. Would you like to talk to them? I have some individuals who are plaintiffs in the state of Indiana who are extremely concerned about what is happening. Maybe I'll give the phone to Mrs. Whitehart.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air, sir, and we're talking about the issue of verifying the constitutional ability for somebody to run for office. Your thoughts there as you've been talking with Dr. Taitz.
Well, I'm one of the plaintiffs. My name's Carl Swihart, but we just felt that the attorney generals were trying to say that this was a federal issue and trying to point that Congress should do something about this, and we were arguing that the Secretary of State with the Indiana Election Commission right below her has the power to poll the ballots or stop Obama from being on her ballot. And just yesterday, Orly and I turned in a fraud and grievance forms to the Secretary of State, for the same reasons, everything that you and I know about his background, his past, and nothing's being done about it. We knew we were in trouble when we walked in and we called the media, and when we walked into the judge's courtroom, there's no media there. So they're kind of like state-controlled, as Rush Limbaugh calls them, and they were contacted, but no one showed. So I didn't have a good feeling going into this hearing. And really, the attorney generals did a bad job of presenting their case. But the only thing the judge could tell us is that we didn't bring any evidence. But what we call a second amended complaint, we had a lot of evidence. We had Obama's forged birth certificate, Sheriff Joe Arpaio's affidavit, a few other affidavits thrown in there, selective service voter card registration or selective service fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, record is forged. So we had all that, but the judge looked at us and said we didn't have any evidence. So it's like when you're taking on the big guys like this, they have all the cards in their hands, and all we're trying to do is be the little guy and stand and say a voice, but it's running out. It's almost like when the media's not even there, we're a socialist country, unfortunately, whether you like it or not.
Well, let me say you're welcome on this media because we're conservative, but we believe that truth needs to stand. And
thank God for you.
We are here, and we have given out Sheriff Arpaio's phone number. We're asking the people listening to again ask him to appear at these court cases. Now, this is several that Dr. Taitz has had, and the sheriff, who's made all the noises about the qualifications or lack thereof, now has refused to show up. And my question is he being threatened? Has there been somebody far bigger than he is that says either be quiet or what? I don't know.
Well, according to Orly, he's pulled in over $7 million from campaign or off this, like having donations pour in, but then recently he just had a Tea Party get together where he was going to present more evidence, and no one showed because I think the writing's on the wall. The people are saying, "Hey, if you're not going to go the next step and show up in court, then why come out with all this evidence? Put your money where your mouth is, so to speak." But there was another plaintiff. His name's Bob Kern, and he was actually one of the reasons why Indiana had tighter election laws.
Okay.
He was a Democrat, and he'll give you his story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, Bob. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my name is Bob Kern. I actually was the 1998 nominee for the Democratic Party for U.S. Congress in District 6, which I ran against Congressman Dan Burton, who is a Republican. In this past year, which was 2012, I ran for U.S. Congress against Andre Carson, who is a known Muslim in the state of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran for Congress. Of course, I lost. But and I'm a well-known Democrat. I'm right now. I'm very ashamed of being a Democrat, but and possibly will be leaving the party due to the effect. But today was kind of a win-win for us. A little, somewhat of a win for the plaintiffs. I feel as though that I think that Orly did present her evidence sufficiently, but the judge did not take that evidence and accept it into evidence. So, because she, said more than one time that there was no evidence.
Is it possible? Is it possible that you can appeal for a change of judge?
Actually, I think we're pretty happy with the judge.
Okay.
There are some Indiana. Orly needs to just get basically, like the judge said, she needs to get more familiar with Indiana code,
okay,
and the Indiana election laws and things like that, especially the Indiana rules of being an attorney. But I feel as though that once she does that completely, because, she's not from here, she doesn't practice here all the time.
That's right.
So I think once that is accomplished, then possibly we will come out and prevail to the good.
So they haven't thrown it out of court. It hasn't been. The issue has not been thrown out yet. It's still.
No, right. It's still pending.
Great.
And we had an emergency. She asked for an emergency injunction, which was denied. But that's okay. Everything works out. Everything will work out for the good. The Bible clearly says that all things work together for good to them, love God to them, and they're called according to His purpose.
That's right.
And I believe that we, the people, that are working desperately to prove that Barack Obama is a fake. He is not just his birth certificate is a fake and a forgery, but Barack Obama himself is a fake and a forgery. He is not who he says he is, and our elected officials on the Democratic ticket who represent the people, or who are supposed to represent the people from the state of Indiana and across the United States, know that he is not truly who he says he is. And these people, once it is found out, they will, off with their heads as well.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that information. We're going to be coming up here on a break. But again, we were hearing from two of the plaintiffs, and we're very glad to give you the opportunity to share your views today. And again, I hope that you, if you'll tell Dr. Taitz to keep us informed here on Crosstalk. We'd like to follow this of what's happening.
Well, I also want to encourage the Democrats to not listen to the bigotry from their own party, because they're leading them to they are leading them to the end of the cliff where they're going to fall off. And Barack Obama is not the Messiah. He's not the chosen one. And that's the way they're portraying him, and he's not. He can't even take care of himself. We have soldiers. We have an ambassador that was murdered, and no one even gives a darn about that.
I want to thank you very much, sir, for joining us, and give our thanks to Dr. Taitz as well. And we'll keep in touch on this case. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to cut away and give you a chance to call in. But let me once again, and I'm hoping many of you will pledge, say, I will call Sheriff Arpaio. And if there's evidence, and he has stated there's evidence and brought it before judges and whatever, simply phone calls, as the attorney said, from thousands of people who are listening today, 92 radio stations. You realize if 100 people from each station would call, that's over 9,000 phone calls. So it's up to you, folks. You're the listeners to Crosstalk. And you call, share your own views, whatever they are. We're going to open our phone lines right now, 800-733-9829. 800-733-9829. That's to call us here and share your views today. If you would like to call Sheriff Arpaio, it's kind of a difficult name to say, but I've got it mastered, I think. Sheriff Arpaio. The phone number to call his office and ask him why he doesn't show up, or to urge him to show up when subpoenaed. That number is 602-876-1801. 602-876-1801. We'll take your phone calls as you call in with your comments today on Crosstalk, and we do have some minutes left in the program. And right now, Randy from Waukesha is on the air. Randy, you're on the air.
Hello. I read a book that said that Obama's mother, she lived in Hawaii when she was pregnant with him, and according to her passport, she didn't leave Hawaii until Obama was in school.
Well, ma'am, let me just say there's a lot of allegations that are out there with books and statements. In fact, there have been over $2 million, according to sources, that has been spent in order to cover vital and factual information. And this is why so many people are wondering, what is truth? What is not truth? What is the answer there? And there are, of course, many people who will make statements of authority, but when it comes right down to analyzing things such as the Social Security number or the draft card or all of the birth certificate, all of these things have been raised to question. And these are things that certainly have been raised. Thank you so much, Randy. Tom in Fort Scott, you're on the air. Tom.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
Fine, sir.
I don't know if you've heard or not. Have you heard about the movie 2016?
Yes,
Obama's
I have.
America?
Yes, I've heard of that. Dinesh D'Souza, I think, was the guy that produced it. He's a Christian man that's president of a college, yes.
Yes, sir. It's very enlightening on what he's really about and what he's doing. And I thought I'd let you know, in case there's a lot of others out there that don't know about it.
Tom, are you willing to pick up the phone and call Sheriff Arpaio?
Oh, I've got his number down here. You betcha.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the call.
You, sir.
Fort Scott, Kansas. We go to Portage, Wisconsin. 800-733-9829. Peter, you're on the air.
Hey, Vic. How you doing today?
Fine, sir.
So I was just wondering, we have a criminal at our post in the Washington right now. I mean, if you or I tried to do something as far as file a tax return with a false Social Security number or any one number of these things, I mean, that are blatant, outright, proven falsities, we would get thrown in jail for this. These people, along with Eric Holder, the criminal that he is, needs to be thrown in jail. These people are criminals. I was just wondering if you think that this would, what kind of ripples this would cause, and what whose side is Sheriff Arpaio on anyway?
I don't know the answer to that. The questions are there. Perhaps he's embittered because of his lack of support over a period of time. I don't know. We're observing and, of course, giving you people a chance to talk about it. That's what Crosstalk is all about.
Thanks, Vic.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate your call. Our next number here, 800-733-9829. Again, for people who would like to call Sheriff Arpaio and ask him to respond when he's subpoenaed. The court case today in Indiana, they said had he been there would have been evidence enough to bring the case forward. Arpaio's number, 602-876-1801. We'll be right back.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewweekend.com. In our last commentary, we began talking about 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. He made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. As we said, some teach that this means that Jesus Christ was a sinner, but he was not made a sinner. In fact, John MacArthur writes so clearly, he says, it is crucial, therefore, to understand that the only sense in which Jesus was made sin was by imputation. He was personally pure, yet officially culpable, personally holy, yet forensically guilty. But in dying on the cross, Christ did not become evil like we are, nor do redeemed sinners become inherently as holy as he is. God credits believers' sin to Christ's account and his righteousness to theirs, end quote. Jesus Christ did not become a sinner on the cross.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, as we've been, first of all, visiting with Dr. Orly Taitz, a well-known lawyer in this country, and dealing with the eligibility of our president, Barack Obama, to be considered for re-election. So many of these items that are out there in severe question, evidence that seems to be very confusing, allegations that there's forgery, all of these things out there, and seemingly impossible to deal with it. And then when the evidence was presented, or sought to present the evidence in Indiana today, just an hour or two ago, they had subpoenaed Sheriff Arpaio to come and be part of this and to testify, and he never showed up. And the question, of course, is why didn't he show up or whatever? And so the attorney, Dr. Taitz, suggested that people could call him, and certainly you can call him and ask him any questions you want to. But the phone number there for Sheriff Arpaio is phone 602. That's 602-876-1801. And if a few thousand of our listeners today will do so, and folks, that means you, not the guy next door, you. Pick up your phone and ask why he didn't show up, why he wasn't available to give evidence in this very, very important trial. Right now we're going to quickly go back to our lines because we are very limited on time. And Victoria, Texas, and Jacob on the air. Jacob, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Vic. Hi.
Very quickly, huh?
Yeah. I was thinking, I seen the thing on the news about a couple months ago, and it was, they quietly on a Friday dropped the lawsuit against Sheriff Arpaio for racial profiling. I'm thinking, death threats I think are a given. People that stand up for the truth and speak out, they get death threats, and their kids, and they get rape threats, and their kids get threats against their lives. And,
well, Jacob, there are efforts many times when somebody is a whistleblower to silence them, and that was my question: is there some evidence where all of a sudden all the efforts of Sheriff Arpaio are now being silenced because he was very vocal on the issues, and suddenly appears that there are other things that may be brought down against him? Could that be the thing? I don't know.
Well, here's the thing I'm thinking, Vic. They dropped that lawsuit against racial profiling, but when Eric Holder was on the Senate floor and they asked him, "Have you read the bill? Have you read the law that they passed in Arizona?" He said no. Right after he'd said he's suing. I can't see why they dropped the lawsuit just because nobody's filed yet in Arizona.
I thank you very much. I've got to move ahead because we've got so many calls, Jacob. Thank you. David in New Berlin, very quickly.
Yes, I just wanted to suggest to Dr. Taitz to collaborate with an attorney from Indiana since she is licensed to practice there.
Yes.
There must be someone that could help out.
I think those steps are probably going to be taken. Good idea, David. Thanks so much for that. Charleston, Illinois, and talking with Jim. Jim, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
As you had advised, I called Sheriff Arpaio's office, and they had, of course, the typical menu that you would go through. And so I selected administrative department to speak to. I could tell it was busy because they kept on saying, that line's busy, press 3 if you want to try that number again. So I pressed 3, and then it'd say, then press 6 for the extension again. I tried that 3 times. And then finally I got through where it wasn't busy anymore. And then when I finally got through, they were just saying that extension is not answering. So apparently they're not answering any of our phone calls.
Well, I'd check. They're probably being overloaded at this point. But folks, write the number down and call tomorrow. Call. It doesn't have to be right now. And right now it's about 1 o'clock out there, or 1:49 in Arizona. So it's still early in the day.
That's a little surprising that the administrative department and the sheriff's department wouldn't be taking phone calls.
What if it was an emergency and they wouldn't take a phone call?
Well, They say dial 911 if it's an emergency right off.
Thank you so much, Jim. And let's go to Jeff, Wheeling, West Virginia. Jeff, you're the last call. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Oh, okay. If you call the number of the sheriff's office, rather than go through all of that, number 1, number 2, number 3, if you just hit 0, it will take you to the operator, and that will be one of the deputies there.
Very good.
Now, I happen to kind of had some information as to why he didn't show up.
Good.
If you talk to them, they're going to tell you that he has his own investigation going, and when he's ready to do a lawsuit, thinks he has enough information, he'll do it. And he doesn't want to be involved with the Orly Taitz situation because she's been thrown out of court so many times that it looks bad for him. He wants to do it on his own.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for your thoughts from Wheeling, West Virginia. Well, folks, it's been a busy day today, and we appreciate all the information that comes our way. The stories that we're talking about need to be regarded very carefully. And, of course, as we see our president busy with the David Letterman show, with the View, with the ladies in the View, while we have national or international leaders that are gathered in New York, and he does not have time to visit with them, it has raised a lot of issues. People saying, is he snubbing them? Well, I don't have the answer. But may I say, and again, I apologize to Ron in Mansfield, Pennsylvania, and Fred in Milwaukee. We're not able to get your call today. But may I just say that your phone calls to national leaders and to be knowledgeable about these many things that are happening. Too often we are apathetic. We simply sit back and we let things happen with no questions asked. And then when it comes time to deal with it, perhaps questions should have been asked before about all political leaders. Have they been vetted? Do we know for sure that they're qualified? Was this done? I have nothing to prove it one way or another. But as we open the phone lines and allow you to discuss it, that's what Crosstalk's all about. And hopefully that you can glean something out of this. Some are still calling Sheriff Arpaio. That number 602-876-1801. I hope many of you will take the time to call and at least express your views, whatever they may be. And again, Chris in Pensacola and Ron in Mansfield, we will not be able to get to you today. But again, our thanks for taking the time to call us. And hopefully we can get back on this topic not too much further down the road. Election is not too many days away, so we need to pray. Pray that God will give us wisdom in the time of election, help us to have discernment to understand who will make the best leaders for our country, what they stand for, and what the outcomes may be. I want to thank you for inviting friends to listen to Crosstalk across the country. Hope that you'll join us next time we meet right here around the VCY America Radio Network. God bless you. Have a great day.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.